We all love a nice long book. The big, beefy boys with lots of story. But what's the problem? They're a little intimidating. Sometimes you want something a little more approachable. And I have the series for you. The Singing Hills Cycle by Nevo. Look at how small that book is. This is the Empress of Salt and Fortune, the first installment in this 5-book series that is ongoing. It's a series of novellas. And Nevo, despite the size of these books, has been able to craft some very compelling stories despite their small stature. We don't care about awards on BookTube. That being said, the Singing Hills Cycle has received several award nominations and has even won a Hugo Award in 2021 for the first installment, The Empress of Salt and Fortune. I don't want you to get the impression that because these books are small that they lack substance. That could not be further from the truth. There's not a lot of meat on these bones, but it will sustain you. There is plenty of story to go around. One thing I like about this series is that Nevo, the author, uses these small books to talk about big brain ideas. One of the biggest questions the author is constantly asking is, what is history? The simple answer is, history is what has happened in the past. But when you ponder about that a little longer, that is not a complete definition. There are plenty of events that have happened in the past that we have no record of, and thus they are lost to history. For something to go on the historical record, it must be recorded. There must be witnesses. There must be a record. And that's what this series is all about. Which doesn't sound all that exciting, but this is a series that is not about action. It is about revelations. These books take place in a South Asian-inspired setting, and it follows Ji, our monk historian. But this is not your run-of-the-mill monk. Our protagonist is a monk historian from a sect of monks whose main job is to gather history, to obtain information, and to record it and put it away in their archives. So most of the plots of these books center around Chi encountering individuals who offer a different perspective on historical events. And as a history nerd, I love that. I know I just made this series sound very nerdy, but trust me, this series is amongst the most approachable books I have ever read. There are several reasons why these books are so approachable. The first one being they're short. They're short and sweet. They're bite-sized. You can finish these books in less than 3 hours, and they have a very cathartic ending. Second, each installment in this series is a standalone. You don't need to read The Empress of Salt and Fortune to understand the latest installment, The Brides of High Hill. That being said, I recommend you read The Empress of Salt and Fortune first because there is very minimal world building in this series. That's another aspect that makes this series so approachable. But the world building that is done in this book. So you could read these books in any order and you won't miss out on anything, but there are some slight Easter eggs that you won't be able to understand or catch if you don't read this one first before you read the other installments. All of these books are well paced. They're short, but sometimes if the pacing is wrong in a short read, it can make a 2-hour read seem like 5 hours. This series does not run into that problem. They are well paced. And one of the main reasons they're well paced is because there is very minimal world building, and also there is almost no info dumps whatsoever. The author doesn't take time to describe the settings or the history of what's happening outside of what is needed to understand each specific plot. So the pacing's really good and they're very easy to digest, and you'll read these in 2 days tops. Nevo's writing is very atmospheric, and the setting has a very magical realism type feel. It's a soft magic system. There are talking animals, there is magic, there is demons, but we don't really know exactly how the magic in this world works. So it has a very atmospheric, mythic legend feel, and it's just very immersive despite being very short. I must concede that these books aren't incredibly exciting. I never had my heart racing while reading, but they are incredibly compelling and emotionally cathartic, and they make you think, and the revelations that are made by our protagonist throughout these books will really keep you thinking after you close them. I started reading this series because I needed some palate cleanser reads between the giant monsters I was tackling last year. And because all these books are standalones and there's no overarching narrative that goes through all the books, you don't have to remember a lot of the details from previous installments. These are great palate cleansers. Each story has a very similar feel, but they talk about different subject matter. The Empress of Salt and Fortune is about a woman in exile. History has forgotten what has happened when this woman was isolated in this cabin in the woods. Our protagonist, she stumbles upon This cabin is going through the records and makes revelations about the past that are earth-shattering. When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain tells various versions of the same love story between a tigress and a scholar. It talks a lot about how narrative and point of view can greatly influence the story that is being told, and I love that one. Into the Riverlands dives into the history of infamous martial artists. This one is near and dear to my heart because martial arts are a very big part of my life, and this story read like the founding myths, the founding histories, the founding legends of various schools of Kung Fu. It was nerdy, and I enjoyed it. Mammoths at the Gate is the most somber installment in the series. It talks about love, loss, grief, and the pain that is left behind when someone passes away. This one will hit you in the feels, and it's very different in tone to the other installments. The Brides of High Hill follows Chi as they accompany a young woman who's being married off to an aging lord. This is very different in tone and subject matter to the previous installments in the series, and subsequently is my least favorite installment. Ni Vo, the author, uses different plot devices in this one. It has a very similar feel to the others, but it wasn't quite what I was looking for. Definitely my least favorite installment in the series, and I hope it does not signify a change of tone, a change of pace for the series. If you don't care for history, stay for the talking animals. My favorite character is Almost Brilliant, who's a talking bird that remembers every piece of information that they're told. They always accompany Chi on their adventures. And the talking animals are by far the most compelling individuals in any of these stories. I wouldn't exactly call these books cozy, but they're comfy. You'll be very comfortable reading these books. The stakes aren't too low so that nothing matters, but you're never worried for the lives of our characters. So if you're looking for a series where you don't want to be too excited, but you want things to matter, you want to talk about big ideas and big concepts, I think this series is definitely for you. Also, if you're just trying to up your book count, you'll feel pretty good about yourself if you could read 5 books in less than 15 hours. Ni Vo crafted something very special with the Singing Hills cycle. I don't hear a lot of people talking about it on BookTube, and that's a damn shame because these books are pretty dang good. In conclusion, I enjoyed this series. I think it's well worth your time. All you have to lose is perhaps 3 hours of your time. I think this series is severely underrated on BookTube. I think it deserves a lot more love. And in my humble opinion, it is just a series of 5 hidden gems. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.